Good evening. We're going to resume our meeting now, and we're at the point in our agenda of the consent agenda to approve or amend the consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes that they need to make in that consent agenda? Do you have a motion to approve it?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Ms. Gretzi Cobb. Okay. As you came in the door, there's a clipboard where you could sign in to make public comment. And Philip, do we have anybody on Zoom?
I'm not seeing anyone.
No one? Okay. Here? Oh, we have Earl Richmond. Earl, would you step up to the podium, please, and give us your name and address, and go ahead and tell us what you'd like to speak to us about.
Yeah, good evening, 106 River Run Drive. My name is Earl Richmond. I saw Liam putting up a few minutes ago. I said hi. I just wanted to go over 3 quick items, and I've been talking to some of our trustees and emailing our trustees, but they're important to me, and I always think about them as I'm rolling around, can't sleep in the middle of the night. But the first one is just how important childcare is in early childhood care centers. As we know, when you have a kiddo and once they start school, kindergarten, first grade, you feel this sense of like freedom. You can get back to work and be productive. Our young families in town are really excited about the opportunity for more childcare opportunities as our town's blossoming, and we just have this incredibly talented workforce that's looking for options for their kids so they can get back to work, and they're already here. So that's one thing that's always on my mind. 2 is the importance of workforce housing for Chaffee County employees. So folks that live in town and work for Chaffee County businesses, it's so important that we help find them some housing solutions. As I've talked to a couple of our trustees about, if we know BEV is awesome, most incredible town in the world, and everyone wants to move here. So just being strategic that if we're building housing for our workforce, that it's really for our Chaffee County workforce, because they're in huge need right now. The third thing, as I go to several meetings on my other side of life, centered around rec infrastructure and rec improvements around the county, there is discussion of rec district coming back. We haven't had that presented to us in about 15 years. What a rec district is the formation of a boundary that would define some sort of way to raise money to help fund large capital projects like big trail systems, rec centers, pools, etc. Ice rinks on that schedule as well. So no details yet. We as town staff aren't allowed to or will we lead the conversation, but we're starting to hear it. So it's just something to stay tuned as we're seeing the desire for some big rec projects in the future. That's it. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So now staff reports. We can start with the administrator.
All right, good evening, everyone. First report is on page 49 of your packet. Administrator report. So wanted to highlight a few things. One is Kim Marquis sent an update on the Chaffee County Outdoor Recreation Management Plan, which is about a year since it was adopted across the county, including support from the town of Buena Vista. So she provided some updates there, you can see, but it's really encouraging to see how many people they're getting involved with some of these efforts, and especially those that are patrolling the public lands. We know that that's much needed around here with all the visitors and campers, things like that. So, appreciate her update, and I did let her know that later this fall, when the board's in budget season, that kind of thing, we're hearing from advisory boards and things like that, it might be a good time for her to drop in for a quick public comment or something to provide an update, especially forward looking to see what they're planning on for next year. So that's good. On a not so exciting note, or a little bit of a downer note, we did find out that our request for the congressionally directed spending in support of our water project did hit a wall. And so you can see in there that Senator Bennett's office reached out to me, and while the senator was supportive of the project, it is not moving ahead in that process. We knew that this was just an opportunity to try to get more funding, but we do feel very confident in our funding stack for that project with the grants that are coming in and the low interest loan that we'll be closing on later this year. Appreciate them letting us know. Good news is that the Chaffee County Emergency Operations Building facility that they're putting here on the north end is proceeding in the process. That request went in and that project is moving ahead so far. So that is good because that does benefit our community. Moving on, the police station, or should I say the new police station that's well under construction right now. We did close on our financing, so very excited. End of July, we did receive a lot of money into our bank account. So pretty exciting to see, and we will be spending it quickly because the team is moving fast over there. So that's exciting. But there were several individuals and even more people than this that really helped me, helped Michelle before she left. But between Collegiate Peaks Bank, Butler Snow, which was some legal counsel or bond counsel for the project, Stiefel, and of course, Catherine and Jeff really all came together to help get that all wrapped up, and it looks great. So glad to have the money in the bank now. And that concludes the administrator report. I will take any questions.
Are there any questions for the administrator? You can put on your treasurer hat and carry on.
Right, here we go. So I have completed the second quarter Q2 or the Q2 report. And I decided to integrate the regular report into the quarterly report so that we're not having to kind of overlapping reports. So if you all are okay with that, I will continue to do that. It does make the staff report a little meaty for these quarterly ones. So I will typically let you ask questions about the details in here because I want to emphasize a couple of parts of this report. One is in the regular report, you will see that we have completed the sale of the second Belden lot. So we did receive a little over $252,000 into the bank account. That's in addition to the $300,000 from the first lot that was sold a little while back. And so between those two, it has done it's a great help to start rebuilding up the unrestricted fund balance, as we'll talk about here in a little bit. But definitely want to recognize Joseph for his help helping me get those things closed. That involved more than just selling them. There was a lot of pre-work on that, subdivision, surveying, all that type of thing. So thank you very much. Now we can continue to do the fun things on the capital side and some fund balance.
Yeah.
So, what I want to focus on here is our fund balance reports. So in the quarterly report, there's traditionally been, I'll expand this so we can see some of the numbers. But there are two fund balance reports in a quarterly report. The first is how things look at the end of the quarter being reported. So this one with the blue color is through the end of June, and it reflects what has happened so far in the year, plus what some of the assumptions or things that are currently underway. It just kind of provides an outlook to what are those fund balances looking at like right now. It's an interesting report, but it might kind of demonstrate how much money do we have right at that moment. But things happen so quickly, especially right now when we're having a lot of cash outlay, we're bringing a lot of cash in. So I want to focus on the second one, which is an end of year projection. So taking everything that's happened, all of the actuals, whether that's revenues from sales taxes or proceeds from the sale of properties, expenses that we've realized, plus what we know, what we expect, either based on budget or other reasons, what's going to happen in the remainder of the year. Now, there are still quite a bit of assumptions in here because one, where this says, hey, we're going to finish all the projects we budgeted this year. There might be one or two that continue into next year, but we have committed those funds in the budget. So therefore, we're assuming that they will be completed. So the main one I want to draw your attention here is the general fund. And the projected revenues through the end of the year, which is a little over $8 million. This includes quite a bit. This includes the sale of the fire station, the sale of one of our fire trucks, the Belden lots, the ARPA fund, the second half ARPA funds, a lot of things in addition to our budgeted revenues. Okay, that's why it's a large number. But then you will see we have quite a bit of our regular budgeted expenditures, plus we have a lot of transfers out, and I'll come back to that number in a minute because it's higher than what we budgeted. We also have the taper reserve, which is a set percentage that we hold back to comply with tabor law. And then we have the 27% reserve that we hold back. And that's board policy for emergencies. In between here, we also have what we've set aside. We have the ARPA funds. Okay, so now we've received that full $720,000 into our general fund, but we're holding that aside. Okay, so that's why it's in its own column. The police station reserve was also something the board wanted to set aside. That's really the proceeds all of the proceeds that we got from the fire station and the equipment and things like that. We've decided to aim that towards the new police station. So we're setting that aside. So when you take those out, that leaves us just short of $900,000 in unrestricted fund balance at the end of this year. Okay. Now, moving down to the capital improvement fund, you will see that we started the year with a negative balance. That's not necessarily uncommon. We try to get around zero. We don't want to carry a fund balance in that account. We like to true it up if possible, get close to zero when we're getting over into the new year. Revenues, things like that. But this projected revenues here includes the purchase of the police station itself. It includes the full expenditure on the police station, includes other capital projects, things like that. So quite a bit of expense there. And you will see we project negative 1.1 at this point. Now, to true that up, you can see that we have a little over $1 million from our police station reserve. That would transfer over because that's going towards the police station. And then we have an additional $100,000 from the ARPA reserves that's going towards Carbon Street. That was in our budget. So that would come out of that 720. And that 100 plus the little over $1 million brings that balance to zero. So I'm not showing that transfer yet because I just want to illustrate how we would true it up based on the decisions the board's already made on allocating expenses towards projects. You will see that the interfund transfer from the general fund over to the capital improvement fund is sizable. That is because we spent into general fund balance to buy the police station property at the beginning of the year. That expense came out of the capital improvement fund. So we're moving money from the general fund over to offset that. Another couple of things to point out. We have the all hazard response fund, which is now, we'll call it dormant. It's still a fund. It still has money in it, but we're not realizing any more revenues or any substantial expenses at this point. Our budget, we did have a transfer from that fund of $340,000 over to the general fund. So you'll see the transfer in over here, transfer out of the all hazard fund. That will leave roughly $315,000 in that fund. So what we'll probably talk about at the end of the year is just taking the remainder out and putting it in general fund balance, or the capital improvement fund if we already know a project we want to allocate it to. So that's where that stands. Now, water fund. We are projecting to spend down to a little under $1.7 million in the water fund. The main reason for this, well, two main reasons. One, we purchased Bray Allen water right. We made our first water payment this year, our first payment on that this year. The second is during the mid-year adjustment, we were assuming maybe spending 1.1 million in debt towards the phase 1 of the water project. We decided not to take on additional debt and just spend down fund balance for that because we were getting a grant for the other half from CWCB. So that brings that down to about $1.7 million in the water fund. Now, remember, we still have the ARPA money that we had talked about sending over to the water fund to help with some of those projects. So that would be another thing we talk about at the end of the year. Do we want to go ahead and move that money over to the water fund or continue to hold it for a little bit longer? It's a very healthy fund balance. I'm comfortable with it. I don't think it's out of range of what we've been talking about or expecting, but it is lower than the last time we looked at this because we're not using debt to fund phase 1 of the project. That's a lot of information. Hopefully this will continue to make sense to you all. This is policy-wise, this is a very, very important report to understand because this is what we will use to justify or help make decisions on doing larger one-time capital expenditures, which we'll talk about a little later in the meeting. There's an idea. So questions?
On that 27% reserve, what is it 27% of?
27% of revenues, of budgeted revenues. We typically balance our revenues and expenditures. So whether it's expenditures or revenues, it's usually the same amount. So this is actually based on our budgeted operating revenues.
Okay.
Because in an emergency, we're not worried about necessarily spending on capital projects. We're focused on keeping our operations going.
Good, thank you. Other questions for the treasurer?
It's a helpful explanation. Thank you.
Yeah,
Very welcome.
okay, so we are ready for Chief Dean Morgan's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustees, good evening. I had a work at home day. I was working on the budget. It's exciting, so a little more casual attire tonight. Just a few things from my report to address. Well, we had our large scale exercise on July 20th. It went very well. We had over 100 first responders involved. We learned a lot of excellent lessons. And tomorrow we'll be going down to Salida for a debriefing with most of the agencies involved. A lot of those agencies came up here to help us, so we figured we'd do the debrief down there to save them the trip. So we're going to review our after action reports and things like that, which I've been working on. We also had 12 citizens volunteer their time and most of the day to help us as role players, and their assistance was invaluable. And at our team meeting next week, we're going to invite them to have dinner with us, kind of as a way of saying thank you for their help. And Trustee Cobb already reached out to me and asked for a copy of the video that my wife edited together of the exercise. And I'm happy to do that, to share that with anybody else who's interested in seeing it. Officers are staying super busy. Traffic's really heavy in town, and we've had pretty much a crash almost every day over the past couple weeks. So we're definitely trying to crack down on some traffic issues and just encourage people. Did a PSA on our Facebook page just to encourage people to drive safely, go the speed limit. Just be aware of what's going on. I got a complaint also from a citizen about the crosswalks again, which is an ongoing thing. Just requesting that people exercise extra vigilance in driving and take precautions of those crosswalks and really pay attention to those flashing lights, especially with school starting here in a couple weeks. We met with Judge Bull in Vista last week. There's a lot more mental health type calls that we're receiving. We're coordinating with the co-response unit that Vista has up and running now. It's been really helpful. One of their co-responders joined us today for a ride along, and we really appreciate the initiative and the bridge building there. And you know, it's really good to work hand in hand with Vista. They were also a part of our large scale exercise, and we really appreciate that. Also, we really appreciate Judge Bull taking some initiative to help coordinate some legal issues. Some of the mental health things that we deal with, there's an interesting dynamic where it's, you know, questions arise as to when it crosses into a criminal issue, and is jail the best place for that person, or whether it's just a mental health issue, but then trying to find what resources are available. And as we get repeat offenders, and some of them sometimes do kind of cross into the realm of criminal activity, navigating some really good options with mental health and the legal system that I think will be really beneficial. So it's a complex issue. And as I said in my report, you know, at the state level, Colorado was listed in a report as one of the worst states in the entire United States for mental health resources for its citizens. And I'm contemplating writing some letters and just looking at options to hopefully get some people at the state level to come up with some solutions. It's very tough in rural areas, especially. As I said in my earlier, I worked on the 2023 budget quite a bit. I did find out we got about $8,500 in grant money to buy an interactive display for the new building. So we're excited about that. We got that from POST, which is Police Officer Standards and Trainings. They provide a lot of grants for agencies, so we appreciate that. And our school resource officer, Megan, she's doing an excellent job, but she's going on to light duty. And Officer Jake England has expressed interest in stepping in and fulfilling our SRO contract while she's on light duty. He's a great officer. He's pretty new if you haven't met him. Really excited to have him help out in the schools, and he'll be operating kind of under Megan's direction for the next few weeks. There's a lot of school activities starting up here with back to school night, August 24th. We're doing our standard response protocol, active shooter trainings with the school staff in August. And then we had a safety meeting with the school yesterday to kind of debrief some of the stuff from the big exercise and go over protocols and things. We really appreciate the local schools taking school safety seriously and working with their local first responders. August 26th, we got our police versus firefighter softball game, and that raises money for Crime Stoppers. And also there's going to be a raffle to raise money for Billy Cordova's family, which is a really cool thing. They're going to be selling t-shirts there as well for the game, and they're going to have Billy's initials on the sleeve. So come and support the police at that event. Yes. I can't see the room, but I don't know, is Chief Cordova there to make a report?
You mean Chief Bertram?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, Chief Bertram.
Yes, he
I'm
is.
Okay, I was going to mention, I think you guys had something planned for this Thursday, but I will let him speak to that. So, and the last two things that they're not in my written report, just a couple things that happened in the last couple days that kind of highlight what first responders are dealing with. El Paso County Sheriff's deputy was shot and killed in the line of duty on Sunday. His name was Deputy Andrew Perry. So as you go around, you might notice a lot of first responders have their badge shrouded for the fallen Colorado officer. We want to give our condolences to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and Deputy Peary's family. And also, I talked to Sheriff Speasy. He said it's okay to share this, that one of their sergeants made a traffic stop earlier this week and on a vehicle stop recovered a substantial amount of fentanyl, which is very dangerous. As such, we've implemented some safety protocols within the department as we're seeing this in our community now. Including evaluating the types of gloves we use when searching vehicles, making officers wear N95 rated masks, things like that to protect our officers. And just be aware it's in our community and it's very dangerous. That's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Chief, is there any training available for people who want to carry Narcan? Such that they can help somebody who is overdosed?
You bet. We get Narcan from public health. They've been very generous with that. And part of our new protocol is that our officers carry it on their person if they're searching a vehicle, and then we have it in our cars. So for citizens that are interested in that, I would definitely reach out to public health.
Thank you.
I have some questions. Chief, can you characterize generally what types of mental health calls are contributing to the increase that you mentioned?
We've seen some related to the transient population that comes through, people that are living on the streets and are unable to get a job. That generates some problems in calls. Sometimes their behavior is pretty strange. One of the co-responders, reminded us that it's not illegal to be, she described it as socially psychotic, meaning if you're out in public and you're just acting weird, that's not necessarily a police response. We do get calls on people that are just acting bizarre. But if it's not illegal behavior, then, we have those conversations as to where to, what resources to connect that person with. And I think it's more common in the city that people are just accepting of strange behavior, but it's not seen as much up here. So it is generating more calls for us. And then there's a handful of people that, I would term frequent flyers that we deal with a lot, and they're in the system. And there's things related to getting their medications adjusted, getting them in contact with services that can provide them with psychological services and things like that. And we're navigating that with the courts and with Vista.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, let's see, I guess I did want to mention that I looked at the video that you sent me, and I really do recommend that folks view it. It's about 25 minutes and it's pretty compelling, very sobering. Paula had mentioned that to me at one point too. And it's really kind of scary to think what can happen. And it's also reassuring to think that we're trying to coordinate and practice. So I appreciate that. And then I also wanted to ask you about if we can't come to your softball game, how do we contribute to that cause?
Let's see, if you want to contribute, like donate some money or whatever, just reach out to me. And I'll put you in touch with Ed O'Brien. He's the coordinator. He's a retired Chicago police officer. And then after that, he did 10 years with Salida Police. So super good guy. And he's on the board for Crime Stoppers. So I'll connect you with him.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions for the police chief? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So now we'll have a report on the airport. Is this coming from Jack or Chandra?
Coming from me.
You, okay, great. Thank you. Another hat to wear.
Really, I want to recognize Chandra Swanson. She's doing a tremendous job. She's covering a lot of the leadership activities out at the airport right now, while we're a bit shorthanded. So she's the one that put together this great report. So I want to recognize her. I'm just sharing it with you all. So a couple of the main things I want to point out. We did complete the executive terminal and executive hangar roof replacement, skylight replacement. That was a major capital improvement project out there this year. So they appreciate having no leaks, and we've had some rainstorms recently to test it out. And so far it's performing. So great to see that. Testing did start up in July and continues into August. So we are still seeing kind of mixed numbers in terms of our operations, where Jet A fuel sales are up a bit, 100 low leads down. We expect in August that with the testing that we'll continue to see Jet A up, which is good. But it's very challenging. Our margins are squeezed right now with the fuel prices being up. We've had to keep pace with that, but it's into our margins quite a bit. So budget wise, I am a bit concerned about the airport going into next year. Its fuel sales are the major revenue driver for the airport. It's good to see testing still continuing and picking up a little bit again. But it makes it hard to keep after the capital projects that are needed. And so we'll likely continue to see subsidy from the general fund to help make that balance. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions.
We're ready for Fire Chief Bertram.
All right, good evening, Mayor and trustees. So this, I can't believe it's already August. The summer's flown past. It's been kind of a crazy time. Starting with, we've got quite a few different staffing changes going on our side of things. Michelle, who was doing our inspections, her last day was the 7th. She's moving over to BVPD. So wish her well out there. Kira is out for a little while. She has a brand new healthy baby boy. Was born on last Saturday, so exciting to get them there, and they're going to take some time off, her and her husband, and enjoy the baby before coming back to work. So in the meantime, a lot of the inspection duties kind of falls on myself and Brian Welch, our former inspector, but we'll make it through. We were able to finally get some staff, some new staff on. It's definitely difficult trying to recruit people. Just, it's hard for somebody moving into the county and make a living. So we did find some great people. We're excited to bring on Jeff Zeckman. He's as our wildland mitigation coordinator. He actually did it for 5 years for Eagle Fire up on the I-70 corridor. So he's bringing some experience in with that. So we're excited to see what he can do with our mitigation programs, helping us there. And then we brought on 2 people to add to our facilities and maintenance team, which is Zach Austin, Devin Alder. So it's great to have them on board. We've got a lot of projects going, and all of them are also do firefighting duties as well. So that helps with our minimum staffing. So excited to have them all on board. We did bring in some new residents as we're expanding our resident program. And so we just completed a Firefighter 1 Academy. They're moving into hazmat operations class right now. And then our focus really for this month is water supply training with that. A lot of that's going to be leading up to, we're going to be going through an ISO assessment, which is the assessment of the department. It gives us rating. A lot of times the insurance companies will use that to help with some of the figuring out the rates for insurance. So water supply is actually 50% of our score. So the total 100 points, 50% is water supply, 10% is our dispatch, and 40% is the fire department. So we're working hard to try to improve that, especially in the rural areas. See what we can do there. Even though we've had all this rain, we've had a lot of lightning. We've had quite a few lightning strike fires. We had 4. One of them I included a picture on up on the rocks, was just right up here on 304 off the Midland grade. That one took a little bit, I think, to be reported because everybody thought it was a campfire about 200 feet off the road. We also we had one on the south end of the county on state trust lands that the guys had to hike in about an hour and a half to get to it and spend the days up there. There's no way to get trucks or anything. So that took some time to get under control, but we do have all this rain, but we're still in high fire danger. Our fuel moistures are still low, and luckily we haven't had any major ones because of that rain, humidity's been up. So we already talked about ISO. And then, you know, it's definitely been a change for us with the unexpected loss of Chief Cordova Flores. You know, it's a tough thing. We've had to make some adjustments with our command staff. We used to have 3 battalion chiefs. Now we're down to 2 battalion chiefs. So we split up responsibilities of the stations and so forth. So it's definitely left a hole in our organization that a lot of people are jumping in to, you know, try to fill. He was, I think most of you guys heard, you know, he was in a motorcycle accident. He was an organ donor, so they brought him to the front range to do all that. And this week, we're gonna be sending 2 fire trucks and a deputy down to Colorado Springs to bring his remains back to the county. We'll put it out on social media. We were planning for this Thursday, along with all the other emergency services agencies on a slide of fire. Everybody's gonna participate. Our plan is to bring it down from JV up 313 to Main Street, and then have a procession go to our Station 3, Allen County Road 306. There was a last minute holdup right before the meeting. I was told not to put the exact time, so I'm not sure if we're still gonna be doing it Thursday, but I'll keep an eye out. We'll put it on social media, like I said, and if kind of come by the street and help support the family, that'd be a great thing. And moving on, construction Station 4. You know, I'm always jealous when I go to work and I drive past the new police station. There's people out there working, stuff's getting done. I'm hoping this year we're gonna be able to move into our Station 4. And then last week we had some major rains down in Poncha. I don't know if you guys saw the flooded our new addition. So we had several inches of water in there. A lot of our gear was soaked, so we had to dry that out and still waiting on supply issues. So still don't have a completion date. So we're still anxiously awaiting that so we can fill that and staff that. And then year-to-date instance we list on here, we're up about 40% this year, and kind of continuing with that. So it's, you know, you drive around town, you see all the traffic, it kind of explains why we're busy. So that's all I've got for you guys tonight. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say how sorry I am about Chief Cordova. I know a member of his family, and just really it's very sad for you and all the folks who worked with him. He just sounds like just a really wonderful guy, really beloved throughout the county.
Yeah, and he was involved for I think 36 years on the fire department. Wow, as a volunteer. So, and he had his hands in a lot of stuff around the town. So we're trying to figure out from the rodeo to everything else. So everybody's kind of feeling it.
Hang in there.
Chief, I have a question about that water supply. Is that related to your capacity, like at hydrants, and how much water you can carry to a fire? What is that water supply issue?
So there's several different things. So one of the things we actually go through, they'll evaluate the water department, each of the towns, so any water systems. So they'll go in there, that's how much water we can get out of the hydrant. So that's one part of the assessment. The other part that we're working on is the hauled water thing. So this is for homes that are outside 1,000 feet from a hydrant. We've got hauled water. We have to do all the testing to show how much water we can deliver. So it's putting in our tenders to work, hauling the water. We're actually timed on how fast we can set up a site to be able to pull water out of, you know, the Arkansas or out of a cistern. So they time that. They time how long it takes us to fill the truck, takes how long to dump it, all of that. They put a calculation together, and that does a lot for our rural water supply.
Okay, what happens if you can't live up to their expectations?
Well, so here's a great thing. They've just changed some stuff with ISO. So if you're outside of that 1,000 feet of a hydrant, you're an ISO 9 currently. We're hoping if we can increase our water capacity, show that we can do that, we can lower that down way below a 9. And for a lot of our community, if you make that jump below a 9, it's one of the biggest insurance breaks.
Okay.
So unfortunately, a lot of our district is an ISO 10 because that's outside 5 miles from a fire station. So really, that's the worst it gets, but there's nothing we can do with it. We have actually started some initial conversations with the game trail area about revisiting the idea of a fire station out there again. That's way down the line, right? But yeah, so we're hoping for good things with this assessment. We're also hoping we can improve, hopefully improve on, or at least get the same in the town as we've had before. Because with our addition of the resident program, that changes staffing, our training facilities, stuff we haven't had before, all goes into play as part of our score. So we're optimistic about it, but it's going to be kind of a long road.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay,
You
thank
guys have a
you.
great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to business items. And the first one is the Economic Development Corporation with Jake, is it Chafee?
Rashavi,
Rashavi.
that was phenomenal.
All right.
Most people get that wrong.
Yeah, great.
The clicker. Well, I just want to start by saying thank you. I've been on the job for a year, took over for Wendell Pryor, who many of you I'm sure know very well. And this is the first opportunity I've had to come and present in this setting, so I appreciate it. Partially, one of the big reasons why I appreciate it is you all contribute alongside the private sector in supporting the work that we do. And we've created, I think, some great momentum over this first year, and I'm really excited to share it with you. Well, I'll kind of just format this presentation over the next 15 minutes, roughly around our strategic plan. So we are really at the highest level in the business of building a year-round economy that is less dependent on tourism and visitorship. We view tourism as a phenomenal thing, and it's a blessing, and it's today one of the reasons why we're thriving and growing in a lot of ways when a lot of rural places around the country are in decline. But that won't last forever, and like all of the boom and bust cycles we've seen over the history of this community, we can't be assured that that's going to last forever either. And so building out that year-round economy that's resilient to those changes should start right away, because it takes time. And so we really focus on three things: startup and scale-up support, so entrepreneurial support, and we'll talk about that in some depth. Talent pipeline and work-based learning, so creating the workforce of the future for businesses throughout the county. And then public policy, particularly focused around land use and infrastructure, but also some of the things that you heard from Mr. Richmond. Really targeting the housing and childcare, water, broadband infrastructure, the big issues that create the environment where these year-round businesses can thrive. So on the first one, the reason we focus on entrepreneurs, obviously, the quickest way to add 50 jobs to a community is to go find a, Amazon fulfillment center and put it out at the airport. But that doesn't really feel appropriate for this culture and this place. And so we really believe that taking great small businesses and helping them add 5, 6, 7 jobs is a much more appropriate way to do economic development that's in line with the culture. And building in that diversified way also provides a lot of resilience to whatever the next disruptions may be. We know they're coming. We don't know what they look like, but they will certainly come. And so again, year-round job creation, increased wage diversity, increased capital investment in those companies are some of the key kind of benefits from this work. The way that we do that is we take this ecosystem building approach. So with the business owners at the center of that equation, surrounding them with the capital, the coaching and training, the connections, and the climate that they need. And the culture is a big piece of that too. And I think that we're really fortunate in that this valley really values entrepreneurial spirit, and we're seeing that in our work. And this is an example of what entrepreneurship looks like here. You'll recognize some familiar faces, but we ran our first Accelerator Program this last year and had a lot of, food and beverage, a lot of outdoor industry companies, a lot of environment-focused companies. But a lot of people, I think of entrepreneurs as, 2 kids in a basement writing code, and that's not what that looks like here. So we, again, on the coaching training front, we run these companies through an 8-week Accelerator Program, teaching them kind of business growth fundamentals. We've built a mentor network of 30 business experts in various different areas of expertise. All of the folks that you see on that slide live here locally. So we're about balanced half and half local and statewide mentors that help to work with those entrepreneurs. We build out a capital network, so local banks. Collegiate Peaks is one of our primary sponsors, but we work with all the local banks. And then for those companies that are really oriented towards fast growth, we've got relationships with venture and equity. There's a ton of programs out there to support rural entrepreneurs right now in the form of grant funding from the state. And then an important part is we're also
cultivating high net worth individuals that live here in the valley that would be interested and able in investing in local companies to support that job growth. And I'm really happy to say that that's coming together a lot faster than we thought. They're now 8 local members of the Central Mountain Angel Investor Group, and they just made their first investment of $200,000. We think that there's going to be 2 or 3 more considerable investments at the end of the summer, but that becomes a really powerful way to increase the growth rate of those local companies. And getting to the culture piece, and this is kind of the fun part of my job, the way that we go about kind of inspiring that culture of entrepreneurship is by bringing folks together and telling inspiring stories about successful entrepreneurs. And we held a great event at the Surf Hotel, and I got the opportunity to kind of sit on stage and talk with a handful of these really impressive entrepreneurs. Locally, we had Charlie Chuck with Fading West join that. If it's not completely obvious to everyone in this room, this is one of the most compelling companies in this valley, if not Colorado. Stick building homes is probably not going to get us out of the housing crisis that we're feeling. They are at the forefront of the alternative production approaches, and that company is going to grow a ton in the next few years. We talked with this woman, Elizabeth Marsh, who runs a similar program to this accelerator down in Durango, and they're ahead of us. They've been around for 12 years, but they've, through this similar approach, have funded 27 companies with $33 million in additional capital and created 450 jobs in Durango, which is only about 20,000 people. So not all that different than here. Koel Tome, the founder of Nusi Yogurt, really well attended. We sold out. And I think that's a great sign that this community cares a lot about these types of things. Obviously celebrated those first 10 companies in our Ascent cohort. And now we're kind of looking to the future. Obviously, we've had the benefit with your help of pursuing and winning a DOLA grant to support this work for 2 years. We've just put in an application for the EDA's Build to Scale program for another $800,000, which would continue that work out for another 3 or 4 years. It's super competitive, but I just wanted to let you know that's in play. The high level goal with that work is really, we believe that that approach can produce about 25 year-round jobs a year once it's kind of fully up and established. So the second piece, talent pipeline and work-based learning. I wanted to point out that we are a source of economic data. I believe you might have received a report that we put out about a week ago, but basically just kind of full economy overview for this valley. And we're able to do that in partnership with some state level resources that allow us to produce that report for free at no cost to these communities. But it's got some really pretty important numbers that I think we all feel anecdotally. But, you know, population has increased in this valley by 9.9% in the last 5 years, is projected to grow another 8.7 in the next 5. Unemployment rates at 2.16, which, you know, if in the economist world, 5% is actually full employment when you consider churn. So when people talk about not being able to find the talent they need to keep their businesses open and growing, it shows up in the data. So I would encourage you to check out that report. In terms of helping those local employers find that talent, one of the key pieces is work-based learning programs. So internships, apprenticeships, industry-sponsored projects. We're currently in the process of running our first, what we call the Future Work Camp, and we've got 12 local employers, including some of the biggest in the valley, basically learning best practices on how to partner with, for example, BB School District, which is putting a much bigger focus on internships and that engagement with industry. So we're really excited about this approach, and we've actually put in we're past 2 gates on a $50,000 grant request to Freeport McMoran Climax Mine for a community grant to support that specific pipeline work, talent pipeline work next year. And then the third piece is obviously the public policy side. And I think that that's what I'm very eager to discuss with you. And I would say that if my personal calendar over the last 2 or 3 weeks is any indicator, there's a lot going on public policy, and it's a good thing. The county's land use code update is underway. There is a ballot measure coming. I think you just heard about it from the Housing Authority. Your own affordability and affordable housing kind of code and process audit, and a number of other kind of smaller individual policy pieces, largely again around housing, childcare, those kind of key issues that the business community cares about. And so we've been kind of looking over the last year at how to better clarify the business community's position and insight on those issues. We started out with a land use working group that was kind of public and private and makeup. It was, I think, valuable, but it fell short in a couple of ways. It provided input and a venue to kind of workshop public policy with the business community, but it didn't really produce a clear document or report that summarized that business community position. And there wasn't really an effective way to communicate that out to our public sector partners. And so about 3 months ago, we started pursuing this different approach, which is basically forming a public policy subcommittee of our board of directors. And the folks that are on there are well known to you. Paul Erickson with Sangre de Cristo, Randy Crane with Comfort Gas, Joe Smith with Collegiate Peaks Bank, Jeff Post with the First Colorado Land Office. There are 8 in total. You probably know every name on there. But I think generally speaking, these are people who are perceived to be, for good reason, not ideological, but pragmatic in terms of their business operations and how that interacts with public policy. And the concept is really just on that left side, being able to intake a policy question or topic from any of our public sector jurisdictions throughout the county. And that group then meets now bi-weekly. Every one of those members on that committee is arguably too busy to be taking on this additional work, but they do it because they see the importance of engaging in that way. And then basically communicating that position back out, not only to staff, but to the elected officials who are going to vote on those issues. And again, I think that approach, to me, it just seems like there's, number one, it puts process behind those discussions, which I think produces a better product. We've now heard 3 or 4 different big policy topics and produced a response that we've gotten very positive feedback in terms of its approach and just general tone. And we're going to now be meeting again every 2 weeks for the indefinite future. And that the membership of that policy committee will kind of alternate over the years, but we're kind of up and going, building the process behind that. And I think a critical piece of that too is our own internal data collection, understanding how business community positions relate to the policies that are actually being passed. And that, again, I understand that there's some, or I predict there's some sensitivity to that. That is for us at the board level, including Philip, who is representing BV on that board, to just understand those dynamics better. And so I'm really excited about that approach. I think the general response from our public sector partners has been really positive. And I think the most common thing I've heard is, I can't believe we haven't been doing this before. There is a recognition that the business and the employer voice in a lot of these issues is an important one to have in there. We understand we're not the only one, but we are, I think, now at the table and committing the time and effort to be able to contribute to your conversations in a more responsible way. So that is it. And I'm happy to answer questions if you got them. I'm really curious how I'm doing on time.
You do great.
Great.
You crushed.
I promised Philip I would do this.
Very good. Jake, could you talk a little bit about what is happening in Chaffee County with regard to broadband?
Yes, a bit. So there is, I'm sure you're well aware, a kind of once in a generation opportunity for federal funds into rural broadband generally. There is money moving through the system very slowly. It's going to be coming through state agencies, a few different ones, including the Colorado Broadband Office. We are in the very early stages of forming a public and private collaboration to start pursuing actively that additional federal and state funding to support the broadband build out here. Obviously, one of our key board members is Carlin Walsh, who just purchased the Colorado Central Telecom. We think that it was a huge priority for us to help to negotiate local ownership of that asset. They have about 4,000 customers in this area. And obviously with the proliferation of not only remote work, but also remote healthcare and remote education, it's the difference between a community that thrives or doesn't in a lot of ways. And so I think having secured local ownership over that's a big deal. But so there's not a hard result in terms of like what that's going to turn into, but we think that we're as well positioned as any other rural county in Colorado to be able to pursue and win those funds. And it's a short window, 2 to 3 years. So it's a top priority.
Do we have a group that's ready to pursue that endeavor? Is that your group or
I mean,
somebody else?
I think we are serving in that role in the absence of anyone else. I think our argument would be that once we get to the like actual formal grant applications for a lot of that work, logically, it's probably going to be the county that is the lead applicant for a lot of those funds. But there probably will be kind of local government participation in all of that.
Thank you.
I think I have a question about the proposed ballot question in November.
Yeah.
Have you had any feedback from your members, pro or con, about moving, what they think about that proposed?
Well, yes, we just heard from Becky Gray today in that policy committee. It was a fabulous conversation. If I had to summarize it, and I haven't actually literally summarized it in response to Becky, but I would say that there's a general acknowledgement that the urgency around that issue requires action. There's a lot of different opinions about the best way to approach that. And I think Becky coming into today or currently her thinking is that that's going to be a mill levy. There are varied opinions about that as being the appropriate mechanism to raise those funds. There are others out there, including the reallocation of tourism dollars and also increased short-term rentals, for example, that got a lot of interest amongst our group. I think Becky's going to be coming back to that policy committee in the next month, and she will be seeking kind of a formal endorsement of that, barring some significant pushback from the membership. I think that the default position will likely be to support vigorously, because we just need big thinking around that issue. And much like the broadband situation, we're in a really rare time right now where there's a lot of resource coming from outside of the county, and we'd be foolish not to pursue that. And I think the primary requirement for a lot of that is public-private partnership. And again, so getting back to that, the purpose of the EDC forming in the way that it has, and adding the public sector members to the board this year is a acknowledgement that on issues that big, we're going to have to collaborate more closely than ever. So TBD in terms of our formal position on that ballot measure, but again, I think it's one of the best, quickest options to get some real resource into funding units supported by the public sector, largely built by the private sector, but we need to get units on the ground yesterday.
Thank you.
More of a comment, but just, give you guys kudos for the Central Mountain Ascent. A chance to tuck my head in there and check it out, and what you guys are doing is great. I'm a big believer in education, so helping those people set up and understand and learn more so then they can bring more into the fold is absolutely imperative to having that future. So just kind of a thank you for doing what you're doing, and a good job. So
Thank you. And I'm hugely appreciative of the direction that both BV and Salida school districts are going on the education front and that engagement with industry. They've been huge partners for us on that future of work boot camp, for example. And that doesn't work without kind of a deep pipeline into kind of younger and younger ages, getting them interested and excited about what their potential future careers are. Thank you. Mr. Hilton.
Yeah, here is. Thank you, Jake.
I had a question for Jake, though, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, hey, Jake, sorry I couldn't be there in person. I talking about industry and education community coming together. I was just curious if there are any companies, organizations in the county, or if you're working with them or with CMC, with the Colorado Skills program, getting that forward at all, or
Yes.
Sorry, advanced skills.
Yeah, so it's the perfect timing for that question. Next week's session of that boot camp is all focused around skills-based hiring, which is a change. So it's how do employers write job descriptions that don't immediately obviate out people who have the skills to fill those roles by, say, requiring a certain education attainment or work history. There are great programs at the state level, and we've got the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment and then the Colorado Workforce Development Center, who are partners on that boot camp. So one of the kind of key pieces is helping those employers here locally engage with all of the new funding opportunities at the state level. And that there are a couple of programs that I think is what you're referring to that are at the table with us and eager to engage. The employer response this week was excellent.
Great. Yeah. Sorry. That's for like Skill Advanced Colorado will be there. You're saying.
Yep.
Representative with them. Okay.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Well, again, I deeply appreciate your help in supporting this work. While it covers the whole county, we have had awesome engagements from the companies right here. I think, almost a third of our board on the for the actual EDC is from BV. At least a third of the participants on that policy committee are here locally in the business community, and to have the support of the public sector means a lot to us, and we're going to need that partnership even more in the years to come. So thank you.
Great, thanks for having
Thank you.
for being here.
Would you like to click your back?
Please, I don't know what to do with my hand without this thing.
So the next item B is actually a public hearing, is that right?
Yes.
So I now open the public hearing related to item B, which is the right-of-way dedication for portions of Cedar Street and South Main Street. The issue is, should the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of resolution number 59, series 2022, entitled "A Resolution of the Board of Trustees for the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado, approving the dedication of Cedar Avenue and South Main Street as shown on the minor subdivision of Block 30, Amendment 2, Town of Buena Vista, Colorado." So I think we will hear from staff. I mean, is the town actually the applicant here? Who is the
Yes.
applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
So
We'll hear from the applicant or staff or both.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. This should be a pretty straightforward hearing in the sense that this is largely a cleanup endeavor. So as you saw in the staff packet, you can scroll down to a couple of those maps, I think on the next page. We're considering the skate park, which is behind us, and the adjacent portions of Cedar Street and South Main Street to that facility. That lot has never existed or been platted formally, and as a sort of a byproduct, South Main Street itself and Cedar Street adjacent to that lot have never formally existed as rights of way in a legal manner. A lot of this, as I mentioned, is cleanup. The town has owned and owns all the property involved. So it's less about asking a developer or the property owner to deed over, convey, or dedicate the rights of way to us, and more about cleaning up what has never been platted before. So with that, the process that would normally be followed in this circumstance where we're platting one lot would be a minor subdivision. That's what we're doing. That requires an administrator approval, a review and approval. And so we're not necessarily seeking board approval of the minor subdivision itself. Instead, we're asking for you all to approve the dedication of the rights of way. I'll probably just stop there. No need to belabor the point. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions, trustees?
Joseph, this helps clean up the future development of this area here.
Yeah, so part of this, some of the topic will bleed into our next business item. But it's all somewhat related from a platting perspective, where we're trying to formalize what has never been formalized before.
If you look at page 111 in your packet, you can see the resolution number 59, series 2022. Someone could make a motion to
We
adopt that.
may need to just make sure we're opening up for public comment in
Okay.
case there.
Yes.
Is there a public comment? On Zoom perhaps, or anywhere?
Not saying anything on Zoom.
Okay. Then we'll close public comment. So you have before you a proposed resolution. Does anyone want to make a motion to amend it or pass it the way it is, or deny it?
Sir, I'll move that we adopt resolution number 59, approving the dedication of Cedar Avenue and South Main Street as shown on the minor subdivision of block 30, amendment number 2, town of Vista.
Second. Thank you. Cobb, Lucrezi. All in favor, or shall we do a roll call? Insect over here. Roll call?
Okay, trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Lucrezi,
Yes.
trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Motion passes. We close the public hearing.
Thank you all.
Okay. So now we'll hear from Joseph again, I bet, on the town campus update. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we sort of just alluded to, the work being done in this whole area, block 30, which is the skate park block, and this block, which is block 25 of the Old Town plat, starts to blend the line right now between simply cleaning up and starting to clarify platted lots, and starting to offer up questions for you all to consider about the future of especially block 25. We're starting to refer to this as town campus. And it was the subject of CU Denver students' master planning and sort of visioning process that was concluded in May of last year. That full report from those students was directly linked from my report. I did not choose to include the entire report because it was about 50 pages, I believe. It is available on our website though. So on page 112, my staff report begins. I won't go into detail necessarily, but I want to offer the starting point, which is that report from the CU Denver students. From what I can tell, I wasn't participant in that, but from feedback from staff and trustees and community, it was an excellent process they went through. The product that they provided, while not detailed very much at all, has a beautiful vision for how this block can start to serve our community, our town government, and the residents into the future. There were many different components of that, starting from the southwest corner of Evans and Cedar, so what's currently a concrete pad right over here. The students heard from community the need for multi-use space including things like gym space, recreation, indoor gathering, indoor exercise for seniors, youth gathering, all of those different needs from the community. And that was represented in the visioning plan as a community center annex at that time. Very quickly, as you all know, and we've talked about before, that transitioned into being identified as a location for the future Boys and Girls Club facility. As we move up towards Main Street, the vision showed how the current police station, or what we're starting to maybe now call Town Hall East, could start to become the building that has the capacity that the town, both board, community, and staff need to fully serve our residents. That building was envisioned to have 2 wings added onto it. On the west side was a 2-story office space, essentially. On the east side was a board chambers or advisory board meeting space that's dedicated, no longer need to set up, tear down, and be able to have this room for other events and other needs. And then on the corner, the westerly corner of East Main Street and Evans, envisioned by the students were sort of live, work, or mixed use buildings that were designed to honor the historical heritage of East Main Street. So brought up right up to the sidewalk, very much in historic character from a design standpoint. And then really the eastern half of the block was envisioned to remain largely as it is today with some minor improvements. Community center to remain, playground to remain, those sorts of things. So staff would offer and maybe ask for a sort of head nod, I guess, from the board that CU Denver master vision is still in play, is still a solid place to start and a solid launching point for future discussions and decisions. That's part of the discussion tonight. I offered 3 key actions that I think are appropriate for you to consider. The first being how to deal with our current police station building itself. As the staff report laid out, as many of you know, the town does not own that building nor the 10 lots of property. We're in a lease to purchase arrangement with the Salida Hospital District, or part of the Rockies Regional Medical Center. And so that lease agreement has a provision for payoff. At any point, there's a sort of an amortization table included with the lease agreement. Interest rate right now is 4% on that lease. And so we know that right now, the payoff for that building and property would be about $306,000. And so one thing as we think about the future of this block, not only from a planning sort of nerdy platting perspective, we cannot change the plats of that land that we do not own. So from that perspective, we would love to see that land come into town ownership and control so that we can start to think about how to replat it, if that's appropriate. And then secondly, as we think about the vision cast by the CU Denver students, how that building can start to serve our town staff and community residents as more office space, maybe initially for recreation and planning departments, as the staff report outlined, but eventually as a full town hall at full build out. So the recommended or sort of considered action on this topic in the staff report was for you to authorize the treasurer to sort of formally notify the hospital district of our intent to pay off that lease. And we can obviously dive into the financial end of that should you have any questions. Do we want to pause there and discuss that first, or would you like me to continue with the other 2 topics first?
Good question, Philip. Where would those funds come from?
So, yeah, if you memorized the fund balance sheet,
I did, yes.
column XY way over there. So we are projecting roughly $900,000 in fund balance. Remember that the capital fund will be offset by further transfers from these reserve funds over here. And then we have an additional $315,000 from the all hazard fund. My recommendation that would be come out of general fund balance. And we would just transfer the remaining balance out of the all hazard fund.
Great, thank you.
Are there other questions on this topic?
No, it would support that move.
Well, Mayor, would you like me to move on to the other topics, or would you like to make an action on that one first?
Let's hear the other topics.
Okay. So the second action is one that you've already indicated support for, but we're at a place to actually move into. We have drawn up a draft plat for consolidating a number of these lots that the concrete pad and the parking lot to our west sit on right now into one large lot that would be the legal description, which would be used to write a ground lease with the Boys and Girls Club. So because we're now at that place of having defined, it's not recorded yet, but we're getting there, but we have a legal description for that lot. Now we're able to actually formally enter into negotiations with Boys and Girls Club on defining a ground lease for that property. So that's the second action that's contemplated in the report.
Joseph, does their design fit on that lot?
We don't know yet. They're at a stage, I won't speak for them, but I did just talk with their team early last week, and they informed me that they are almost done with their RFP process for their final design architects team. So what they had so far and what they presented to you is a conceptual design team that put together a conceptual design. They're now hiring a full design team to take that concept and then move it forward to building permit documents. That's the stage at which they will reconcile any differences in the building size to the lot.
Okay, because it seems pretty important that it fit. I mean, if we're gonna consolidate lots essentially so that we can make this happen, then they should be making sure that it fits.
Absolutely. And I think that direction is something that the board should has provided, and I can emphasize moving forward. You'll recall that there is a platted alley in the middle of this block. So this lot that we're forming honors and maintains that right of way as an alley. Any deviation from that lot that they might propose as part of a building permit or site plan review would have to be subject to separate approval or separate consideration, potentially under our encroachment processes. But ultimately that would be a decision that would come under your direction. So my strong recommendation to them so far has been, this will be your lot size. Let's make it fit.
Can I ask what's at the root of the concern that it won't fit? Because I was absent for that meeting and couldn't see all the, I mean, I was on Zoom for that meeting where they presented and I couldn't see all of what they had projected, so.
My understanding is that their drawing just doesn't fit on the lot size that we've allocated
I see.
to them in this concept.
Unfortunately, it seems like their concept architect was working with faulty dimensions from the start
Okay, thank you.
and made some inaccurate assumptions.
Gotcha.
So they naturally, as a part of any building design project, will go through iterations when they take it from concept to actual construction documents.
Okay.
And that would be the appropriate time to say, how do we make it fit?
Thank you.
Are there other questions in the Boys and Girls Club lot? So the final topic or action that the staff report considers is taking a look forward. The CU students master concept plan pondered a phased approach to build out. As you might imagine, doing everything they talked about was pretty large. And so it makes sense to turn that into bite-sized chunks. One chunk is the Boys and Girls Club facility, right? That's not going to be on town to fundraise and build. The other scope of work contemplated in that master plan really focuses on the current police station building and the adjacent lots to the west. which are 4 vacant, undeveloped Old Town lots. So the staff request is really to say, would you authorize staff to start thinking about what phase 1 should be and really come up with a phase 1 plan? And along with that plan, or part of that plan, would be how would we pay for it? We don't want to just create a beautiful vision with no plan to pay for it. So part of that plan would be contemplating what should phase 1 scope be. In the students report, it was contemplated to be that board chambers. So an addition on the east side of the current PD to accommodate permanent council chambers, trustee chambers. So is that the right scope? And if so, what size should it be? How much might it cost? How might we fund it? That would be the intent of the request in the staff report. You all know we have a lot on our collective plates. There's also some specific expertise that should come to bear in defining what an appropriate board chambers would entail for a community of our size. And so that's part of the request in the staff report to authorize up to $5,000 to engage consultants to help us answer some of those really important questions about what's appropriate for our community when we think about that.
Thank you. Okay, so would we like to consider these 3 items one at a time? That's what I would recommend. So the first one is to consider. Sorry, go ahead. Is that Peter?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a quick question on that $5,000 for the consultant. Have you, I'm sure you already have, Joseph, but kind of shopped around to know that that is the market rate. It just, for me, for some reason, it just stands out as kind of low to find a consultant for this kind of job. So I just want to make sure we kind of, I'm sure you already have, but did the kind of market research on what that amount should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So to clarify, the scope that we'd be looking for from a consultant would not be come up with our phase 1 plan. It would be help refine the facilities needs assessment that we already have to focus on a board chamber and come up with a square footage size and maybe a bubble diagram based on best practices across their expertise of what a board chamber's facility should entail for a community of our size. So it's really just a facilities needs verification or study light of what a board chambers could look like for us.
And we think that that amount will be able to get the expertise we need, like a consultant that has the expertise that we need and that scope.
I do, and I think, you know, just because just as the idea of building out town campus should be phased, our approach to planning it should also probably be phased. Right now, the CU students said we should need a facility of 3,000 square feet. I'm not sure exactly what they base that assumption on. So we're starting with something. We're also starting with whatever expertise our consultant would bring. And we really want a basic number of how big should this facility be. That will help drive a lot of our other assumptions in planning. And the next phase will probably involve more in-depth analysis of not only how many square feet, but how should it be laid out. And so I would say that 5,000 is a realistic number for helping us get to a raw square footage. And then the next step, whenever that becomes appropriate, would involve more study on exactly what that should be.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other specific questions? So the first item, as I would see it, is to consider a motion to authorize the treasurer to notify the Salida Hospital District of town's intent to pay off the lease agreement for the current police station building and property.
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
So
Jenkins, Swisher. And we should do a roll call for that.
Trustee Switzer.
Sorry, real quick, just for clarity, before you make the vote, I want to clarify the assumption that this is just a submittal letter to get things organized for a more formal payoff that would come back to the board before we take any action, spending money or anything like that. So just want to clarify, that's my assumption, but
Yeah. Great, and then when it does come back, you would tell us where it comes from in the budget.
Sorry, Paul.
Okay. Trustee Swisher,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Cobb.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. The second is for the board to consider a motion to authorize staff to draw up and negotiate a ground lease with the Boys and Girls Club of Chaffee County. And feel free to amend the motion as someone, if anyone is willing to make the motion.
And similar to Philip's clarifying comment on the first one, this would be, we would take the direction that we've heard from you over the preceding months and years on this topic, negotiate a ground lease, and it would come back before you before being approved.
And the expectation would be that it's a long-term, low-cost lease to them.
I'll make the motion to move forward in authorizing staff to draw up a negotiated ground lease, the Boys and Girls Club of Chaffee County.
Thank you.
Second.
So we have LaCretzi, Cobb. Let's do a roll call on that also. Please.
Trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi,
Yes.
trustee Swisher.
Yes.
That motion passes. And the third part of this is that the board may consider a motion to authorize staff to develop a plan for town campus phase 1, together with authorizing expenditures of up to $5,000 for this purpose. And again, feel free to amend it any way you want.
I don't have any amendments in that or suggested amendments in that language, but I'm a little bit sensitive that the first step in this town campus, that apart from boys and girls, is for a room for us. And I guess I do like the supporting information that it will save quite a lot of time and money or labor expenditures, I guess, with staff time in the setup of that. So I would really like those coupled as it's and wherever it's explained to the public, because I think that's a important reason. So otherwise, I would make a motion that the board,
Are you making a motion?
I can. Would you like me to?
I want you to be clear as to whether
Yes.
you are.
Yes, making a
Okay.
motion to authorize staff to develop a plan for town campus phase 1, together with authorizing expenditures of up to $5,000 for this purpose.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have Cobb, Swisher. Let's do a roll call on that.
Trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi,
Yes.
trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Great, that motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, so now we're turning to item D, the water treatment plant and infiltration gallery expansion with the project engineering service agreements. And I guess this must be you, Sean.
It is. I have a couple resolutions. They're both ultimately have the same kind of outcome. I wanted to kind of put these two resolutions in the same memo for context. And I think I can probably get through that. So I was going to maybe approach it a little bit differently, but I think we can talk about them both at the same time, the way we're kind of leading up to this, and hopefully I can convey any information that might be unclear. So, so staff is requesting board approval to enter into two agreements, resolution 60 and 61 with JVA Consulting Engineers Incorporated for final design of the water treatment plant expansion project and the infiltration gallery expansion project engineering services. And so, JVA presented two letter agreements to the town of Buena Vista for engineering service to prepare for final design package for both of those. I'm going to kind of just jump to, like, during previous agreements, the water treatment plant
expansion project and the infiltration gallery expansion projects were considered a single project. The main reason we're looking to create two different resolutions is because they have different funding sources. And I hope that's clear for everybody. So resolution 61 is the water treatment plant components, the portions, which is connected to the state revolving low interest loan. And the infiltration gallery is connected to the CWCB grant. And so engineering services for both of those projects for accounting purposes and for ease of operation, I think it's a good idea that we're able to kind of clean those up. So engineering probable cost, OPCs, contractor cost, Stanic's already putting together some ideas for us and never shown them with us. So we're able to get that. And once we start working within the loan, which is the application is right around the corner. There's a lot going on this week with these projects. So we're going to apply for the loan application on the 15th visit deadline. So that's happening really soon. But it will define the scope of services for each of those projects, which helps the agencies that are helping us design and construct those projects. So this is final design. So I think this is it. We need to, and we're there. We're at 60% design to apply for the loan app, and we should have a pretty good plan moving forward these next coming months for final loan execution by the end of the year. And so that's in a nutshell what we're doing. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I don't know if you want me to highlight, the scope and everything like that. Each PSA, which I apologize for, I'm pretty stubborn that way. Yeah, there's an Article 9 illegal aliens in there, so I'm just thick-headed. I apologize. I tend to focus more on the project than the agreement. So we'll if you approve it, we'll definitely have a motion. And also, I have this kind of prepared for last month, so we'll have to definitely update the date of the agreement when that's signed. So I apologize for that. There's, it's all kind of boring water stuff, right? I'm joking, but if there's anything that you want to talk about, definitely like to dive into the letter and proposal agreements that are attached with each agreement. Have a little bit more meat on it than my report does, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of identify each project as one project through two different ways to track it primarily.
So from hearing, Sean, there needs to be still some amendments on these, or because you mentioned the illegal alien things.
I know. I mean,
Last time when I brought that up, she said that whole section was going to get deleted from the contract.
yeah,
So it's still in there.
So I didn't bring it up again.
yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, I mean, is this going to?
Motion should have that amendment.
Yes, that's what I know. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't explain that very well. Yeah. Like I said, I was sitting on this for a couple of weeks. I thought I would actually have this at the last Board of Trustees meeting. Didn't, but here we are now. So the agreement just slipped by me.
So is there amendments in 60 and 61?
There are.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, so are we ready to have a motion on these, or are there any questions for Sean? Sean, it's a great process you've gone through here.
Yeah.
And you're just really are accomplishing a lot. Thrilled to have it going. It's great.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting.
It is. We're in a really exciting spot now.
Huge development for the long life of Buena Vista.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'll go ahead and.
Quit adding pressure, okay?
He's got it.
I'll make a motion to approve. I guess we just do one at a time, it's all right. 60, a resolution number 60, but with the amendment in there with the to remove the legal alien, and I guess update the dates, I think. I believe those were the two areas.
Thank you.
Okay, motion, okay.
Is that all right, Paula? Did you get that?
Do you want to put a specific date to August 10th, since we'll be signing it tomorrow, or?
Yeah, we can fill that in.
Is it the only real amendment in that resolution was the legal thing that, there's no other things in there that we need to,
That's correct.
okay.
Okay, so trustee Lucrezi made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have Lucrezi, Swisher. We should do a roll call on this. Paula, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, trustee Swisher,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Lucrezi,
Yes.
trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Now, is there a motion with regard to resolution number 61?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 61 as amended.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have Jenkins, Cobb. And let's do a roll call on that.
Trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Lucrezi,
Yes.
trustee Switzer.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sean.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that covers the last resolution. Okay, so we're at trustee staff interaction. Amazing. All right. Philip, yeah.
I have a few thank yous I need to go through real quick. So mentioned it earlier, and I want to do it again. Chandra Swanson at the airport doing an amazing job. Really, really good team out there covering during a very busy time of the year. Shane Bassford is also shorthanded in the recreation department. He and his rec rangers set up the room today. He's covering for special events. We've got a big one coming up with Gold Rush Days and Burro Race and all of that. So he's doing a great job just jumping in there and covering all sorts of things. So appreciate Shane. Happy birthday today, Joseph.
Wow. Happy birthday.
I had to do it just because you're here with us right now. But yeah, Joseph is doing an amazing job, as you all are seeing and are well aware, but pushing along, juggling a lot of projects, keeping them moving forward and working a long day on his birthday. So thank you very much for your efforts. And we have some much needed time off happening at Town Hall. So I want to preemptively thank Paula and Lillian for covering the front office the remainder of the week while some of us take some time off this week, especially Lisa Brooker, who I don't know if she's ever taken any time off 7 years. So she is doing that. We're very excited for that. But anytime a person's out of Town Hall or any of our facilities, everybody else has to jump in there. So thank you, Paula, for that. I'll stop there. Thank you.
You. Hey, boy.
I'm really glad.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
We sing to you, but we like you too much.
Just a couple of quick things. One, a quick update on the police station construction. They are moving incredibly quickly, at least at the start of this project. It's really exciting to see. So all the underground plumbing has been finished and the concrete has been poured back. The floor is now completely back to where it was with a bunch of pipe sub-ups. Overhead ductwork has been installed. Overhead plumbing has been installed. And they're loading metal studs right now. So over the next 3 weeks, they'll be framing out all the walls on the interior. So it's really exciting to see, and I'm happy to report that as of today, we have over $106,000 of savings from the original budget that we've found. And so kudos to MW Golden Constructors and their subs. Most of that savings comes from their electrical sub that found a different lighting package that saves $135,000. So really exciting to be partnered with a construction firm that is not only open and honest about the increases, like there's been a couple small increases, but free and clear with their subs that they should be looking for areas of savings. So that's exciting. We're here in about 4 weeks or so. We'll be doing a larger team walkthrough once the walls are all framed to make sure that everyone at the PD feels really good about how it's all laid out before we move forward. One other quick note, in February, you all extended an emergency moratorium on condominiumization. So the conversion of apartment units into condos. That moratorium is set to expire on the 25th, I believe, of August. And I just wanted to fill you in. One of the reasons we're not bringing forward a specific policy on that. We've been working, as you know, with our consultants for the code audit, the housing affordability code audit. And this has been one of the questions they've been helping us sort through. Is there anything we can do specifically on this problem of seeing long-term rental apartments be converted to condominiums and then many times going into vacation homes or short-term rentals? And with thanks to Catherine for providing some legal verification of our consultants' work, the unfortunate answer at the moment is that we don't have a legal basis for refusing certain uses based on an ownership type of a building. We have basis to restrict uses on zoning code and these other arenas, but based on the ownership type of two identical buildings, if one's an apartment and one's a condominium, we can't demand different uses out of those two ownership structures. That being said, the consultant team has brought forward quite a few other ideas that will come forward in the Housing Affordability Code Audit report to you in September. I won't sugarcoat it and say that they're going to solve that problem of losing apartments to condominiumization, but they do offer a lot of other suggestions on how to incentivize some affordable housing. So I'll provide you that update.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Peter, would you like to add anything?
No, I got nothing.
Okay, that's good to see you. I just forget you're out there. Sorry. I'm glad to see you. So Cindy?
The town is doing so much right now. But I will give you that you guys are making it look smooth and easy. Yeah, good job. So many big projects and it's going good.
Gina?
Just that it was nice to meet up the other day. That's really to essentially talk about post office things. Brittany Peterson came in and it was nice to kind of alert her more, see if there's something she could help with, and to meet Grace and such, and just kind of hear what they've been working on. So I thought that was nice. I don't know what will come of it, but just to continue the conversation, I think was helpful and just learning more and hopefully something can be done.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to comment on that also, that, we have two women who have really acted as citizen advocates or interested parties with regard to the post office. And, they've gotten a lot of publicity and Trustee Lucrezi and Trustee Cobb and I met with them, and we're trying to focus on one issue, which is whether we should have to be paying for post office boxes, because it seems that we shouldn't, but we haven't gotten the post office to see it that way yet. So, but thanks for working on that, both of you. So that's all I have. And Sue?
I wanted to ask Philip, I saw your email about the CML policy committee, and let me just be real clear, I'm not volunteering. But as I read the Chief Morgan's report, and he's talking about trying to get statewide or other support for improving mental health services. Is that the kind of thing that we would recommend or join with others to recommend as a legislative item?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, especially a voice from small rural areas of Colorado. And that's a great example of something that could be advocated for through participation in CML legislative process.
And I noticed that they do allow you to make recommendations, even if you actually haven't volunteered for that position. I mean, I know it.
Yeah.
That's true. But how would we actually organize that at our level? I mean, or maybe we could take that up, another.
Yeah, we can definitely continue to talk about it. That's one of the great things of what they do at their regional meetings. We recently had several of the representatives from CML here in BV, and we got to meet with them and voice what's going on in our area. They are the advocates, and they participate in those that process at the state. And so, yeah, I think whether we have somebody designated or we're just submitting something, I think it's something we could work through the mayor and kind of consolidate topics that might come up besides, that's a very good one.
Okay, good.
The mental health one, but if there's others that we want to advocate for. But yeah, and that's the benefit of having somebody that's kind of focused in on that on an ongoing basis too. So we don't let it slip.
All right.
Good. Mark?
Joseph, the FEMA updating the floodway and floodplain map, do you know where they are with that by any chance?
It's a great question. I don't. The last I heard was they were conducting field surveys in June. I do not know a timeline for them releasing draft. I understand that their process will be to release draft maps, new updates to the floodways, and probably do some sort of public engagement process on those and then finalize them. I don't know the timeline for that. I can check it.
Okay, thanks. All I got.
John?
I got a few things just real quick. One, thanks to Dean and the police department. They have offered to make rounds at 10 o'clock at night to help us with our facilities, mostly our restrooms. And so I don't know how you all feel about that. I hope you support that. I think it's, I really appreciate their offer to do that. I think it's fantastic. We've looked at a couple different things, locks and things like that, and we kind of realized there's some vulnerabilities with that. And if there's no issue, I'll work on a memo and we'll kind of formalize that where Public Works Parks staff at some point would, reopen the restrooms in the morning, say somewhere between 6:30, 7 o'clock, something like that. Is that?
This is due to vandalism.
I think it might help us. I mean, we can keep, kind of identifying the events that are happening through that method. And I think it's, I think there's going to be times where maybe the PD isn't going to be available because they're reactive by nature. And so hopefully they're not too reactive, but I think there might be times where that might not, be able to be performed. But I met with Dean a couple weeks ago and I really appreciate the offer. He kind of jumped in. He thought that was probably a good approach. And so anyways, if there's no issue with that, we'll start working on a kind of policy.
I think it's just a safer thing for those evening lockups too, for staff and have an officer there.
Yeah, and I know like we have a lot of travelers and, at 10 o'clock, this town is locked down. There's nowhere to go. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe we need we'll figure out how we respond and what happens. I just kind of feel like it. Have you ever driven through West Cliff at night? There's restrooms open. It's why, but it's nice to have that opportunity.
There's a few porta potties around town.
Yeah, we could figure out something. We have a lot of people coming through, a lot of visitors, so that's part of the consideration. I brought up maybe commissioning a hydraulic report upgrading from the meadow, the gallery meadow at one point. If it's okay with you, I've kind of kicked the tires on it. I've talked a little bit with Archie and I've talked a little bit with Hal with Swarthwater to see what maybe that would cost commission wise. And if it's okay, I'd take some staff time and try to get a ballpark idea of what the scope would be and how we would approach that in the future. Because I think with Run coming back later on this month with kind of an updated water report and development reports, I think we're going to start to see probably more developments happening up there. So it'd be kind of good to see little bit better idea of what is happening and what is upgraded, what is, just because it's uphill doesn't mean it's necessarily upgraded. So have a better understanding of where our water's flowing and where it's coming from and what are our vulnerabilities. And I know that the Water Advisory Board is already talking about updating sections in the source water protection plan. So this is another area that we can, help with that kind of living document. And I had one more, but I think I forgot it. It wasn't too high level. Yeah, I stopped there. Thanks.
Know that feeling.
And Paula.
Nothing.
Okay. All right, good. We made it by 9 o'clock.
Oh, look at that.
So, is there a motion, one last motion?
I'll make a motion. To adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
So, Lucrezi Cobb. Meeting is adjourned.
Joseph, take the rest of the night off. So-
Yeah. Make yourself.